Okay, so let us just start with the review, basically the overview of this course. Okay, so that everyone should be into the same page. We should have the understanding what all things that we will be covering in next upcoming classes, and what all topics that we will be covering. I believe you, anyways, all of you guys would have gone through our detailed syllabus that we have put it into our website. Okay, so we won't go into much details, each and everything into it, but we will just have a overview of it. Okay, so yeah, let's just start with the introduction. You already know about us, that we have started this as a new venture. So I won't invest much time on it. Me and my partner Jaya have started this. Even he's from from data engineering background, for having 7+ years of an experience. So he is not joining us in this batch. Probably he'll be joining another batch. He's facing some issues. So we are also planning to start our offices in Marathali in coming time. So it's still under discussion. Okay. So yeah, that's about us as mentors. Okay. Let's just discuss about the program features. Okay. So as you guys already know that we will be covering SQL and Python pre-programming. Python SQL is something which we will be try to touch each and every topic, because that is something which is very that's a base basically. In Python, actually, since we will be dealing with Azure Databricks, so in Azure Databricks we will be mostly like people into data engineering mostly use as PySpark SQL, like let's say, which is a combination of Python and Spark, right? Or also they'll use SQL. Like I have seen based on my experiences, most of the people these days into data engineering are comfortable in SQL, because that is something which is easier to learn. That is something which is easier to write, right? So, and even it's easier to understand as well. Okay, so people might find PySpark bit complex if they have not pretty much involved into it. But and let's say if you have worked in PySpark, if you for a few time, let's say a few days, a few months, a few years, if you're not in touch with the PySpark, you might need to revisit the concepts. But SQL is something like if you are pro at it, if you're good at it, even though if you're not in touch with SQL, that concepts will always be with you. Okay, so that's the reason most of the people, if you even if you get into data engineering, you will see a lot of people across you will be pretty much well versed with SQL. PySpark is something which some people might know, some people might not be have worked on that. Okay, so we will be covering anyways SQL, each and everything from basic to advanced. Python, we will just cover a very few things, so that you should be into the you should maintain the standards of a market for a data engineer. Someone comes up to it tomorrow, if they are using some jargons and in Python, so you must be well aware of it. So that's where we will be covering all the data structures in Python, and then we will be moving to the basically into the Spark, Apache Spark, which is the major focus that is being used into Databricks. So Apache Spark was something we will just start with the history and the evolution of the Apache Spark, how it got started, what was the need for it, how did it solve problems, and later on like we'll also discuss regarding the PySpark. Right, like the Apache Spark was when it was introduced. Basically, it was for the on-premises systems, right, and was not for the cloud. But later on, as the cloud got into like cloud started booming, people like there are a lot of enhancement that comes in, and people started to moving cloud. Each and every most of the companies are now migrating to cloud. Even these days, there are a lot of companies which are uh, having their basically source data, like existing ecosystem, they into on premises. They might be using some other tools like BODS tool, SSIS tool. These are few tools which are used for data extraction, data pulling, data doing some data transformation, loading. We will be discussing each one of these, what is data extraction, transformation, and loading means. But the overall idea is everyone is moving to the cloud these days. So there are a lot of project that is coming in. And that's where the code that they have written earlier, probably they might have written some .NET codes, they might have written some SQL queries, or they might have gone through some visual representation in SAP HANA. For all of these, they were having into the on-premises. They are now trying to move it into the cloud side. So you might end up into some kind of a migration project once you get some job, which will involve writing of some SQL code, writing of some PySpark codes, and creation of those pipelines. So we will be touching those code, all of these things here. Uh, we'll try to keep two projects, where first project which we will keep, which will be we'll try to keep it on a bigger scale, like a major project. We will try to have some on-premises, realize that we'll try to have some, we'll try to cover most of the components that we have, right? So that ADLS, Azure Data Factory, Databricks, on-premise, Azure Analysis Services, Azure Key Vault. Also, we'll try to have some small projects, so that at least two projects you could put it into your resume. Okay, so if you have 2 years of experience, you could just divide that two projects into one year, and the other project has 1 year. If you have 4 years of experience, you could just change it accordingly, like 2.5 for other, 1.5 for others. So that way we can do. And doubt resolution support is something, so anyways, we are not as too huge into our batches, like a lot of people. We are just 7 people into a batch. So you could anyways reach out to me into the WhatsApp group. Padma, and Harsha, I believe. So you guys have joined later, so I will add you guys also into the group, in the WhatsApp group. So that group will be always available. Just put any of the doubts that you have, and whenever I'll get time, I'll just respond in that group itself. Okay, feel free. You guys do have my number as well, so you can reach out to me anytime. Okay, so that's about this. Coming to interview and profile support. Okay, so let's say once you are done with this class, right? So we will be trying to have some kind of a mock interviews, we could say. We will schedule for each one of you, and we will, in that interview, basically, we will just try to judge you, like, are you getting stuck in your description of the project that you have mentioned. If they might ask you multiple questions into your project, right? So in order to figure it out, they should not figure it out that, okay, this is something which you have learned or you have tried on your own, because these days there are a lot of options available for everyone to do some kind of project, right? In YouTube also, if you'll see, there are a lot of YouTubers who are posting a lot of projects for free. Even they are not charging anything. There are people who are charging very less amount. Also, there are multiple websites for SQL, Azure, where you can learn, correct? And a lot of data engineering projects are there, so people can easily use that project. Like there is a Kaggle website, right? You'll get the data sets, so you can easily download the data set, and you can do, even you could figure it out what other people have done there, what code that they have written into this data set, and what kind of analysis that is done. But doing this project won't help you as an I would say it will help you, but it could not help you as an individual, as a data engineer, as like you, as a real experience, because that is something that might add an additional advantage to your technical experience, like your technical knowledge. But we might need an additional basically information of the ecosystems that usually happens in the real data engineering project, right? Like what sprint they follow, what is their agile methodologies, how are the tasks divided into each of the data engineers, what would be a basic team structure, what would be the team hierarchy. There will be some data engineers, we are data analyst, we are data scientist, then we have business analyst, then we have data architect, then we have platform team, then we have team lead, we have manager. So we must know all of these hierarchies, so that you will feel, so that you should have that, just like, okay, when you're going for interview, you could just, they could feel you that you have worked on the real experience, right? So that's the interview preparation that we will try to give it to you, and based on that, we will create your resume. And then, like, let's say if you are going with two projects, so these two projects that you could add into your resume, we will change clients for each all of you, and we'll try to change responsibilities a bit. Okay, so that it will be different, more or less. uh, you don't have to bother much, because more or less in most of the companies, most of the projects is with regards to development and some kind of migration, and the amount of requirement that is there into Azure data engineering is so huge that they don't even bother to go into much details of your resume. They might want to know your recent project. They will go into details with your recent project, and they will start firing questions on based on their experience, the interviewer experience. Okay, so that's how we will try to make you interview ready. We have helped a lot of people for their interviews, and we have a very good, I could say, I have a very good interview questions resources that if we will try to cover each and all of those interview questions that could come in each of the modules, and 70 to 80% of those any theoretical questions will be covered there. uh, you won't get any question outside that question. There might be some additional question that might come up to you based on the scenario basis, right? So those scenarios we will try to cover when we are covering the interview support. Okay, also the interview question as perspective after every module, we will try to conduct one class which will be on the interviews. So let's say if I'm done with SQL, the very first module, we will have an interview session for the SQL where we will be covering SQL interview questions. Okay, and we will try to do that SQL interview questions could consist of some theoretical SQL questions. It could consist of some practical, basically coding. So we will try to cover each of all of those theoretical as well as practical. Okay, so that's one thing with regards to interview support. Coming to this flexible learning mobile app, so this mobile app we have not started it yet. So anyways, you will be able to access your videos from the browser. So once you log in, you will, I believe, that will be like after every class, after 25th and 24th hours, that recording will be available. We will be able to see that recording today. When it is available, I'll also post in the group. Okay, and we will also try to conduct few tests, quiz. Okay, there's some certification also, but that certification won't, frankly speaking, it won't be helpful for you guys because this is not something which is, we are not any brand as such which the certification will really help. Okay, so but yeah, test and quiz is something which could assist you, like what knowledge that you have. Okay, so that is one part. Okay, so if I'll cover coming to the curriculum overview, okay, so what exactly you will learn, like we will be, so basically in data, right? So we are talking about data engineering, correct? So data engineering consist of all of these things that we see on an high level basis, on an or basically an overview, like let's say some data ingestion techniques, some data processing techniques. Data ingestion as in, by data ingestion, as I mean by that some loading some data, right? That there might be data that could be put it into any source. It could be into, let's say, if I'm talking about the sources, it could be either flat file, it could be either CSV, it could be some Excel files, right? Or it could be stored it in some SharePoint, it could be stored in your local PC, or it could be stored into some kind of a cloud storage, if it is Azure Data Lake storage, if it is Amazon AWS S3 storage. So all of these are storages where data could be stored. And in order to basically read this data, we will be establishing some connections, we will be doing some data extraction, and we will be loading that data basically into some kind of a target. So that is what is data ingestion. And either there are two ways, like either you just load it or you first transform and then load it. So all of these data ingestion and data processing are those concepts. We will be covering these into very much deeper level. Okay, now we will also be covering data storage and management, like what are the options that we have these days in order to store your data. Like basically, we are pretty much concerned with Azure, so we will be dealing with Azure Data Lake storage here. We were having Azure Blob. So what was Azure Blob? Why do we move to Azure Data Lake Gen 2, which we are currently having? So we will be covering all of these concepts and how do we maintain security over your storage, right? So that is a very concerning for each and every IT companies, every businesses, because they want to store their data and they want to have a proper governance across that data. So we will be covering those as well. And last but not the least, data transformation and analysis. So uh, let's say the data that we are bringing in from the source that might need some kind of a transformation, some kind of a data cleansing, right? So all of these data transformation, data analysis, we used to do it either from SQL, we used to do it from Python, we used to do it from PySpark. So we will be covering all of those things as well. Okay. So, anyways, hands-on learning sessions we will be having labs. Like each all of you will we will create our accounts into a portal that will be free. So we will be working there into that account. We'll see if we can have one account and we can add all of you people, or if we can create multiple accounts. So we'll look into it once we come to that stage. Okay. So apart from that, we will also cover the projects that I'm talking about. I personally believe to have the project which will give you real experience. If you have not watched a YouTube video, I recommend you to have a look to that. That is something oil and gas industry company project that I've given, and that even if you see into my LinkedIn, that project is there into for Mu Sigma project that I've worked on. So I basically the case studies that I usually used to bring is for the one which I have experienced. Definitely for 7 years of experience, I might have worked for 18, 20 projects. I might end up of this project sometime later in future, but then we will be taking the project from our people, friends, so that we can have we can help people to understand the outer in knowledge, basically not just the technical knowledge, but the outer perspective of that project, how exactly that is helping the business. Correct? It's just not uh, it should not be just like that. Okay, you have to do some data ETS to this data. You have the data, now you have to perform some transformation. Basically, you should also know how it helped your business to solve their real problems, right? So that's our intention is. Okay, so in enrollment process only we can just skip. Okay, so then all of these things we can skip. Key features, I won't take much time on this. Okay, so before we go to anything else, is there any doubts or any queries that you guys have? No, I think I'll take the silence as no. Good. Okay. So before basically we'll start with SQL and everything. Let us just go through one thing, 1 second. Okay, so I'll just share my screen again. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Mhm. So, let us just try to understand an overview of this. Okay, so anyways, we'll be starting our classes with SQL from tomorrow. But I'll just want you guys to understand a bit of this Azure. Anyways, we'll be going into Azure knowledge in deeper side into upcoming classes, but this is just for the first class, and I just don't want to go into deeper details as of today. But let us just go through this. Microsoft Azure. Okay, so as we know today, right, the world is changing with data. There are a lot of data that is coming in from lot of sources that we have. Correct. I believe when I joined, like when I passed out my engineering, before that, most of the open roads that I used to hear was into Java. I could say because that was into the boom. If I talk about last before 7 to 8 years, right? Most of the people went to Java. There were few people who were working into SQL, into MSBI, but some data engineering, data scientist was some kind of a role which people are not much well aware of it. But now, for past few years, this data engineering, data scientist, data analyst, business analyst, these are the few of the roles that is everywhere. If you could see, a lot of job opportunities are there, and that is not yet. This is just the starting because if you see these days. With recent advancement to the AIs, right? We have lot of things that has come up. Like we have ChatGPT, which is a very good tool. I'm not sure whether you guys have worked or tried it or not. If not, then just just create an account with the ChatGPT. Just try to use that. So that is really a very good tool, basically, which will help you in any of the queries that you have. But that is not 100% accurate as of now because it is a model, right? So a model won't be precise 100%, but based on the more data, most based on the more data that it will be fed to that particular model, uh, it will become more accurate over the years, basically. So even Google has launched Google Bard, right? So that is another AI which is from the Google. So even like most of the companies, all of the companies are trying to cope up with this AI technologies so that they won't go basically back into the markets, right? So yeah, the world is very really very competitive, and everyone is trying to be up to the technical skills that is currently ongoing into the market, right? So that's where we have seen a very high surge into data roles. Either it is data engineering or data science, but mostly if you see most of the roles that is currently present is for the data engineering and very less of it data science, I could say, as an entry level. But yeah, for the data engineering, there are a lot of roles in each and every years of an experience. If you are having more than 10 plus years of an experience, then you are expected to become to have some kind of an architect level into data, right? So like as I understand in our batch, we have people who have more than 10 plus years of experience. So either we could go it like you could say like you are having the last 3 years of an experience into data, and so that if you want to change your stream into data, they should not much rely on to you like should not have basically more demands, correct? And that's what we will focus on. So let's say this is one of the statistics that we saw that okay, data is getting increased each and every day. There are a lot of peoples who are getting enrolled now in their people are using internet very much, very more frequently these days, right? Like before corona, there were multiple people. There are a lot of people who was not into the online stuff. Like now if you will see, a lot of people are using Google Pay, a lot of people are using Paytm, a lot of people are using phone pay, right? Earlier before corona there was no such cases. People still was relying on the cash system, right? They used to have basically they won't do online payments as such. But now every store, if you'll see, even if you will see some tailors that will be on the roads, like basically even like I what I meant to say is each and every store, either it is a big store or if it is a small store or if it is on the road, all of the people have some kind of a scanner here in India, right? To where you can do the payments. So all of these payment that you are doing, basically, if you are talking about the online payments, so that is again also some kind of a data that is getting generated, right? So a lot of people have started doing more transactions. Those all those transactions is again some kind of a data that might be recorded somewhere, right? So So even if I believe, even if I talk about my father, even he was even like if you see old generations, they pretty much were not comfortable with online payments and all, or they might have some belief in their mind, okay, that is not safer to use because of the news that we are listening these days. There are so much of things that is ongoing where they might pick up some money from your bank accounts from some kind of a fraud or from some kind of a link, right? So people was not much having a belief on these all these systems, and that's why they were not using this. But nowadays, all of these people, most of the people are using it. So and that is really that is one of the example how data is growing in the terms of, if I'm talking about in terms of investment in the transaction of the banking account. So that is one of the way. So and coming to that, most of the companies that is already existing, since they were using some kind of an see, like the companies who are going like have been there for last 30 years, last 20 years, more than 80 years, more than 100 years, right? So these companies were earlier before cloud, whatever the ecosystem that they were using, right? So that is something which is going to get updated, basically depreciated, right? And they wanted to move into, and that's the reason they wanted to move into Azure, or not only Azure, they wanted to move into the cloud, either it is Azure, if it is Amazon, or if it is a Google Cloud platform. So because cloud is something which will be providing many much advantages, so we will be covering that advantages. So now let's say coming about these are few of the predictions. The IDC predict 175 zettabyte of new data created annually by 2025. 5G and IoT facilitated immediate. So these are some basically the data that is there, just to make you understand that the data is getting increased day by day, and and that's the reason a lot of enhancement that is coming into the big data, data breaks, Spark, all of them are doing regularly keep on updating their current tools and technologies so that they could cope up with the current requirement of the data. Correct. So at all, the question could be like, let's say we are talking about the data, right? So a lot of data that is coming in. Why exactly this data matters to the organization, correct? So if I'm talking about just the business intelligence, okay. So let's say if I have some kind of a store, okay. Now let's say uh, if I talk about any of the companies, and if I'm talking about Domino's, or if I'm talking about Pizza Hut, or if I'm talking about McDonald's. So let's say they are operating on some business. They have a lot of stores into different cities, right? So whatever the purchase that you do once you visit to these stores, so all of these transactions, let's say what transaction you made, when was that transaction basically done, which product did you buy, right? Which material, which basically what did you order, and what is the frequency of that order that you do basically, or like that product which is getting sold, how many people just bought on the same day, and what is the revenue that is that's basically that store is collecting, correct? So all of these data is getting somewhere captured from that system that they are using, right? Like if you go to the counter, they are using some kind of a system where they will be taking your orders, right? So those orders in the backend, it is basically stored into some kind of a database, right? And the top of the screen where they might be putting all of these orders, they might be using some kind of a software, like those guys who are working there as a staff, they might be using this software in order to make some kind of an entry to that software, right? So they will be trained on how to use that software. They just go there, they might use their employee ID in order to log into that software. They might need some kind of a, let's say, product ID, product detail. They might just type in and automatically the current prices would have come there, and they just print the order. That's it. So that is the front face that they used to see. That is the first front interface. So in backend, all of these transactions that is happening, all of these orders that is getting placed is somewhere stored in some kind of a data storage. Either it is, if I'm talking about if it is in a table format, table and basically column and rows formats, then that data might be getting stored in uh, some kind of a databases, right? Now we being a data engineer, we will be having, let's say, now if I'm talking about the just one company, let's say if I'm talking about MACD, so MACD will have all of these data that will be there for each and every stores, right? And if we will bring all of this data into one place, then we can compare the revenue between all of these stores. We can compare how much, which store is really performing less, which store is really performing more, and we could do some kind of an analysis on those stores which is performing less these days, so that we could increase the revenue. So this kind of an intelligence that we need into that data, so that we could create some insights, and that insights will lead business to increase their returns basically, or increase their profit on that particular line of business. Correct. So that is something a business intelligence will do, where we're having those business intelligence tools, which is basically, if I'm talking about Microsoft, so Microsoft started with SSIS tool, BI tool, which was a BI tool, which was again an ETL tool, which was basically extracting the data from different locations. So let's say if we are using this SSIS tool, we will be extracting the data from all these stores that you have into different cities, right? So let's say, if, as I mentioned, that we want to do some kind of analysis, so we will be bringing all of the data from different sources, and we will bring into one storage. That's where we used to compare, right? So I believe you all have worked on Excel. So if we want to do some certain kind of analysis in Excel, let's say if I want to just arrange the data in ascending order or descending order, first I need to have all of the data to be placed into that sheet of the Excel, right? So that's what is basically data engineering, where we are pulling the data from all the different sources, we are bringing it to one source of truth, into one storage, and then we are performing some analysis, and we are helping the business to generate some insights, so that it could return their return on investment on that. Correct. And also, if you see, business intelligence plus predictive modeling provide business with an average of 145% return on investment. So that is something. Now let's say if I'm talking about the same example, right? So we have dealt with the, now let's say we have different stores which we understood. We have brought the data from all these stores. How we have brought, what cleansing we have done, what all steps that was taken in order to bring the data. Let's not just go into it as of now. Just think that somehow we managed to bring all the data into one place. All of the data that we have brought is having same number of columns, and that means same information provided from all these stores. Now we have it. Now let's say if I have all of this data based on last 5 years, correct? So I could analyze that in the last 5 years, how was my business across each stores. But that is something which is basically on the past data, which now the analysis that I am doing, that is the current analysis that I am doing based on the past 5 years of data. Now, if I want to know, then if you are the owner of Matty or Dominance, then if you want to, probably you might want to know the future predictions, correct? So like, let's say, okay, in 2024, how much could, like, what will be my profit, right? So there will be target for each company, right? They want to increase their profit each and every year. So like last year, okay, last 5 years, my profit graph started from this, now it is to this point. So based on the previous graph that we see, previous trends that we see, similar to a stock market, if I say, if you're purchasing any stocks, so firstly what you'll do is you'll see the history of that stocks, how the stock is performed in the last 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. Then you'll see, okay, this graph is going higher every year. That means, okay, next, if I'm just investing it for next 3 years, I might definitely get good returns, which based on the percentage that it is giving as of now, because graph is every year increasing, right? So even if you want to know the exact figure, okay, after 2 years, what could be the exact number? That might not be 100% accurate, but it could be, at least it could be somewhere near nearer to what it would come. So that is something which is called as a predictive modeling. That is something which we are trying to do some kind of a future analysis, right? That you are trying to predict something. So which comes into a field of data science. So once you have the data, once you have the clean data till now, based on the historical data, you can present the report. Now, if you want to generate or if you want to infer any of the informations in future, that's where data science come into the picture. Okay, so even that is something, that's why the data is really very much basically important for every organizations to in order to understand their current scenario, in order to know what will be their business in future and how could they work on that so that they will always be uh, top in the market based on certain kind of competitor analysis, like how are their competitors performing. So all of these things will be happening in the backend, and that's why the data is really very important for all of the organizations. Okay. If you have any, if I'm going a bit fast, you guys could let me know since this is a very first class. So if you have any doubts also, you could just let me know in between. You could just take it that up. Okay. So I'll just go to the next slide. Okay. So now we have two options, right? We have cloud, we have on-premises. So cloud is something that has came recently, and that is everyone is choosing to use cloud, right? So before cloud, what was it? So before cloud, we were having this on-premises system. So let's say I am trying to start up a company. Okay. So 1 second, Harsha is outside the room. Harsha, have you joined? Hello, you guys able to hear me?
Yeah, Gaurav. Yeah, we are ready.
Okay, I can see. Okay, Harsha, I just added you. Were you not like? Do let me know if you have missed something.
No, no, I have my Zoom issue, so my system got restarted. So again, I back. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay. So you
yeah.
are
I'm
with.
back. I'm on track. Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay, okay. So yeah, so no, let's say as I mentioned, right, let's say I'm trying to start up some company. Okay, now if I'm trying to start up some or let's take an example of already some established company. Okay, some let's say small cap company or which is some kind of startup, right? So whatever the data that we are dealing with, let's say if I'm talking about okay, let's say if I'll talk about a general scenario, if it would be Facebook. Okay, let's say if I'm talking about Facebook, we all of us have profiles into our Facebook, right? So let's say what we used to do, we used to just go to Facebook portal and we used to do a sign up, which will ask us some details that will be required, right? So, or let's say username, email, password, mobile number, even that you have done into our portal, right? So most of these, anywhere you just go, you have to create your account, you have to do a sign up. So whatever the information that you have provided to that particular portal, that particular tool will be stored somewhere. Correct. That data will be stored somewhere, which is basically kind of a sensitive data also, you could say, because you are providing your email ID, you're providing your number. So basically it is that can be used across multiple, that information could be used across multiple marketing strategies, like people you usually see, right? Like a lot of marketing companies that is there usually used to get all of this data from some kind of there will be some kind of a data leakage which we used to hear into Facebook as well. So these data that we are doing, basically that we are generating based on whatever the signups that we are doing will be definitely stored somewhere. Correct. So now if we want to store this data, let's say, so as an user, we are doing a login or we are doing a sign up into Facebook that is tightly coupled with some kind of a data storage in backend. Okay. Now that data which is it is trying to load, it could be either structured data, it could be semi-structured data, it could be unstructured database. Like it basically like unstructured as in Cosmos, structured you could say like RDBMS, where it could be in some tabular format. So I'm not going into that detail as of now. Just understand like somewhere that data is getting stored, correct? So each and every time, each and every people, no, it's fine, 5 people, 10 people, we can have a small data storage. If I'm talking about, let's say, databases and SQL servers, so okay, so I today these days we have an option of SQL Server into cloud. If I'm not talking about the cloud, in the on-premises, if you want to go for a SQL Server, you will have to buy one SQL Server that will look like some kind of a box which you need to buy. You need to do some kind of a that will again incur some kind of a cost where you have to buy that. Then you'll have to ask the concerned person to come into your place and do the installation correct to that those SQL servers, because those are the technical person that will be knowing of all of these things, the installation and the maintenance of it. Correct. So there will be some staff that you might need to hire so that they will keep basically they will do this maintenance, or they will take care of all of these boxes that was a server room that will be there, right? So in the offices you might have seen some server room which will be basically into the very lower temperature, which will be bit cold actually, because so that in order to maintain the temperature of those server boxes so that it could not go heated up and it might not just simply create some issue, right? So let's say if I'm talking about our laptop systems, if it gets heated up, it might start hanging, it might try to get restart. So that's the issue we usually face when any system gets heated up, right? So we'll just try to maintain those. So everything will come into the maintenance part of it, correct? So that's what again you have to incur an additional cost into the installation, you have to incur additional cost into staffing and into the maintenance, and you also have to do a data recovery, correct? So let's say whatever we are talking, yeah, any questions? Someone is on mute. Okay, so whatever we have discussed, let's say we have done the installation, we have probably we have done might be into some kind of a location. Let's say I have started my office in, let's say, Whitefield, into some kind of a tech park. Then there might be some server room where I would have installed this, correct? So what if that there would be some unfortunate scenarios? Let's say if we basically due to any natural calamities or anything which would have basically led to a damage of those systems that is present, then all of the data that we have stored is simply gone, correct? So that will be a huge loss to the business, I mean to say, right? So that's where the people or the companies do disaster recoveries, where they will try to have a backup of the source system that is present. Right. So, where let's say if that office is in multiple locations, they might have one server room into location A, they might have another server into the location B as a backup. So if the servers in the location A goes down, at the same time server in the location B goes up, so that business won't face any issues. Right. If if I'm, let's say, if we are talking about banking systems, correct? We do have our accounts in some kind of bank, State Bank, HDFC, ICICI, whatever banks we have opened one account there, correct? So now, whenever we used to do some kind of a transactions, and if we go to an ATM, and we do some kind of transaction, that transaction will lead to basically we'll try to connect through some APIs and we'll try to get into your accounts and we'll try to see how much what how much money that you have into that account. Based on that you will be able to do the transactions, right? So there will be some kind of a handshake that will happen in the backend, and in order to do the connections, and based on the amount that you have into your account, that within that limit you can do that transaction, correct? So if let's say that that server which is storing that particular transactions data is down, correct? So that means or is being upgraded. let's say there will be every time, every system needs to be upgraded, either if it is a mobile or it is some kind of a software that you are using. Basically, all of these softwares need some kind of a patch, right? So, so that transaction system that we are talking about, that where the data of our bank accounts are stored, that needs to be most of the times active, right? If we see if it is not active, you just go to ATM and it shows server down. If it will be for most of the cases, you might end up with closing your bank account in that bank and you might go into other banks. So this is something which people doesn't face somewhere, that bank server is down. Even they used to do some kind of a scheduled maintenance, they will use intimate you before itself that okay, your bank server will be down from this to this time, right? So what I mean to say is the availability of these servers is very much important to each and every business, and that's why the maintenance is very much required. Disaster recovery is very much required for each of these companies, correct? So that is where that is how it was done into the on-premises. That is what we mean into on-premise. Like all of these stored or located into your own premise, correct? Into your own location, which is not in the case of the cloud. Correct. If I'm talking about cloud, as in if it is Azure cloud, if it is Google cloud, or if it is Amazon cloud, so they what they used to do is they will provide it as us as a service, right? Like platform as a service. Let's say software as a service, infrastructure as a service. We have all of these options that cloud basically provides us. So there we just have to create our own account. Let's say I will go to portal.azure.com. If you go to portal.azure.com for a free trial, it might ask you your name, email address, phone number, and you will get some 13,000 credits for first month, and you will be able to create any of the resources there. You can just go to create resource. You could create, let's say, SQL server, and you can just name the SQL server. You just give the database name, you just give the configuration, how much memory is required, and you just click on the create button. That's it. Nothing else you need to do. You do not need to do some kind of installation. No people required to come and do this installation. No staffing required. No maintenance required. And even disaster recovery options will be provided in the cloud itself. Like how do you want to replicate or handle this disaster recovery? Do you want to store this basically backup of your server into local area? If you want to do it on the some other zone area, like let's say out of the cities, out of the country, based on that they might charge you. So all of these informations of the options are available, and the availability, if I mean to say, where the servers will be down, that is something which is 99.9999, something like that. So the chances are that most of the times, like all of the times, it will be available. I guess so. That's where you will be having trust on the cloud, and that's why, if I'm coming about the costing perspective, you just have to pay for what you have used. Correct. So you don't need to pay anything additional. And let's say if you are using it, you just pay it. If you're not using it, either you can just pause it or you could stop it, and they won't charge you anything. Right. So that's the difference between on-premise and cloud. Right. So if I'm talking about the capital expenses, so on premises, as I already explained, the capital expenses cost will be very high in the on premises, right? Because you will have to provide all of these infrastructure first, and then you might need additional people to maintain it, and then you will also have to think of a disaster recovery. So again, into the different location, you will have to do the similar kind of a setup. You have to do a similar kind of an basically you have to bear the same cost there as well, correct? So that's where the on-premises capital expenses will be a bit more, but in the cloud you won't incur any additional cost as such. There will be basic charges that will be provided to you, and you just have to pay for those charges for the duration that you're using it. Okay. So now coming to let's say on premises, so it is basically centrally located with only a few who are at remote location. Hosted cloud is spread throughout across large geographical areas, right? So that is again one of the advantages in the cloud, since Microsoft Azure will have basically Microsoft will have data centers. Data centers are basically those places where all of these setups is done, where they will be having all of these servers, racks, and all of these things. So all of their data centers they will be having this data center across all of the countries mostly. And so you have a lot of options to choose where exactly you want to do your disaster recovery or kind of a do a backup, right? Now coming to the installation fees, as I mentioned, that on-premise definitely unique and hardware needs to be installed, additional staff contractor fees needs to be given. But in the cloud, the installation cost is very basically very little actually. They will charge you one fees that won't be specific for installing, but that will be for your use. Okay. So the installation cost will be very low into the hosted cloud. Now coming to the maintenance part, right? Now coming to the on-premises, right? Possibility of removal and replacement existing infrastructure can result in, so now let's say since we are going for some kind of a maintenance, okay, we might need to do some kind of an unplug to our wires that is presented to that server room into that devices, right? So that particular time when this maintenance is happening, or if any upgrade is happening, there will be a downtime, which we already discussed. And in order to troubleshoot also not just downtime, if there are any issues that has got basically if you're facing, then even when you have to do a troubleshoot, so you have to call the basically support team. They might come to your location, they might try to fix out. So that till that time, uh, your business might be down if you do not have any disaster recovery plan. Okay, so all of these consequences are there. Coming to the cloud, as I already said, I said that there are a lot of options available into for the data centers. There are a lot of options for us to deploy and have a backup. And because of these, Microsoft, Azure, maybe Microsoft, Google, AWS, like because of all of these competitors, like there's competitive between each one, they won't take any risk of this downtime because it might impact their business as well. Correct. If you are using, let's say, Microsoft Teams, right, in your organization, you will hardly face any scenarios where your Teams is down, right? Even though we might wish that it might be down for some time so that we don't have to talk or we don't have to take the meetings, but it won't be that case, right? So most of the all the times, mostly it will be up. So that is something that is some kind of a you could say belief like people have with all of these systems, and that's where they are using it. All right, so let's say disaster recovery, we have fault tolerance. Anyways, fault tolerance will be better into the cloud, and will be definitely less into the on-premises. As I already said, redundancy is very expensively and typically affected by large enterprise. And in the cloud perspective, we are interconnection reliant, no access to equipment. We do not have access to any of the equipments that will be happening in the backend. Okay, so that is one of the things. Pay as you go is another one of the important thing that we have in the cloud, right? So where you have to pay based on the licensing fees. So whatever you have used, you have to pay that, and where in the on-premises you have to pay for all of these things like license fees, software maintenance, operational cost for software, support and upgrades, all of these details. All right. So now, coming to this question, so why should we consider the cloud? Right. So we already discussed. So first of all, coming to the cost, cloud computing eliminates the capital expenses of buying this hardware, buying software, setting up these hardware, and then running it on some on-site data centers. So these costs will automatically get eliminated if we are using the cloud, right? If I'm talking about the global scale, so basically expanding it to different geographical locations will be far easier if we are talking in terms of cloud, correct? Because it already have that data center available, if that is being done by Amazon, Microsoft, Google guys, and they have given us the access to have that option that we can use these locations. If we are talking about the on-premise stuff, we'll have to manually do the setup there in that location. So if we're talking about global scalability, cloud is good. Coming to the performance, the network latency, if we'll talk about the upgradation of hardware or the scaling, let's say today my organization is having a limited number of users, a limited number of customers. So I will be requiring only let's say if I'm storing all of this data of these customers into some kind of SQL database, the storage that I would require will be less for now, correct? So I will be paying to Azure, to the cloud, only for that amount that I'm using. So I'll be trying to take only smaller amount of storage from Azure. Now, if I want to scale it up, let's say more number of people comes into our more number of customers have joined our company or started buying our products or started doing enrollments. Now, let's say if we are out of our storage, then if we are talking about the on-premises, what we would have to do, we again have to buy that storage. Let's say if I'm talking about your PC, if your PC might support some 1 TB of data, if you are beyond that, either you will go what you are doing, either you are storing your files today into Google Drive, or you're storing it in some kind of a cloud, and then probably in Apple Cloud, or yeah, or if not, earlier people used to buy hard disk and all, and used to store that data there, correct? So, so if you take this example itself, earlier people used to buy this hard disks, they used to have floppy disks and all of this, but now we are not going to buy anything on hard disk. We are just moving all of these things into Azure, and even if our phone storage is getting over, we are just buying those storage. If I'm talking about Gmail, Gmail also provides some certain kind of storage, let's say 8 GB, 10 GB, and if that goes beyond, even Gmail will ask us to do an additional payment on a monthly basis so that they will give us an additional storage. So we are not buying any hard disk for that. We are just paying it to buy additional storage, which will be given by the Google itself. So that's